This is a video interview for the American Legion of George Theofelis, a Anderson Island resident, and George will explain why he's on the island and some of the other issues that are on the paper he's got. Here you go, George.
Okay, Ray. Well, I came to the island in 1963 with Jan Wepfer at around Christmas time of '63 and stayed at Harold Cooley's place, which had no electricity, no water, no toilet. Rained the whole weekend. It was a real memorable weekend. I said, I will never live on an island or even come to the island again. But a year later or so, Jan bought over here, so we started coming down visiting Jan Wepfer and Sandy, and then we ended up adopting 2 children, and they had 3 girls, and so then one thing led to another, and they convinced me to buy on Anderson Island, and I named it Devil's Island because we used to get stuck in here because of the bad roads and the miserable conditions in that in the early 60s and the mid 60s, and then we started building a house and built a house in about 1969, and finally one thing led to another, and then finally I've been down here for about the last 18 years. And one thing about the island, most people that live on the island are not going to move off the island, and they do like the island. A lot of people like it in the winter, which I do like it in the winter, and most people don't. They go to Arizona, but I tried that once, and that's not my cup of tea. So I like the island, and now what else? You want to know what I did in the service? Is that what you want to know? Well, I joined the service, joined the Marine Reserves in '54, and then I was discharged from the Marine Reserves in '58 when I went in the Army. I joined the Army for 2 years, figuring that I was going to, my buddy and I decided to go in. He was drafted and I enlisted, so that's the last time I saw my buddy. He went one way and I went the other, and as luck would have it, being as I was regular Army, they sent me to school back at Fort Monmouth, New Jersey. And I didn't have enough time in the school when I finished to have enough time in the service, so I either had to extend or re-enlist. So I re-enlisted after 6 months in the Army. I re-enlisted for 3 more years in the Army, and I spent the next 3 years in the Army. And I was stationed at the underground Pentagon, which was in Pennsylvania. We were stationed at Fort Ritchie, Maryland, which does not exist anymore. They deactivated the post, and I drove by it 2 years ago, and there isn't anything there whatsoever but the 2 lakes, no buildings, no nothing. It's a big park now. But they must be having people work at this underground Pentagon out of Washington, D.C. or something, because I don't think they were going to close it up, because they had 3 or 5 3-story buildings underground under 600 feet of rock, and it was quite a place. It was quite a place in there. They had the biggest comm center around. You could call any place in the world you wanted to call, and that's what we used to do when we were bored. We'd call someplace and ask them how the weather was, and so that was our bag there. And they had to have a top secret clearance to get in there, and you also had to have take a lie detector test in order to get on that base at the time. And then I was selected to go to Germany because I was the lowest ranking guy in the company, and with the MOS they needed in Germany. And so I ended up going to Germany, which entailed getting another crypto clearance. And I had to get a crypto clearance, so we were handling top secret crypto stuff every single day for the next 2 years of my life in Germany. And one time I had to transport some home from the site to the orderly room, which entailed them giving me 30 rounds of ammunition and a rifle, which would have done absolutely nothing. It would have killed about 30 guys on the bus if I started shooting. But it was pretty funny because the bus driver wouldn't drive. He wasn't going to drive with a loaded rifle on the bus, and we had to convince him to do it. And finally he took us in, and that was the last time, because after I voiced my opinion on the deal, they decided that maybe it was me or whatever, they never did it again. They never transported that top secret crypto stuff around Berlin. Just, anybody could have come out there and went into site and read it and did whatever they wanted, but no more transporting. And I was in Berlin for 2 years. I saw the Reichstag from the Brandenburg Gate. I had thousands of pictures of Berlin, and then I lost them all over the years. Berlin was really a beautiful town, just getting to be a beautiful town. The British sector was beautiful. It was just almost like a 2-year vacation that I had in Germany, and I loved the place. I would go back anytime they want to send me. So if the American Legion wants an envoy to go back, I'm willing to go. I would love to see it now. But they rebuilt everything in it, but it was still bombed out when I was there in the 50s and 60s, and so other than that, I didn't do much in the service, but enjoyed for 4 years. I had a good time. I ended up getting, I get letter about 4 letters a year, maybe at the most. I wasn't too popular at home, and so nobody wrote me much in that, and I didn't write them either. So I guess it didn't make much difference in that. So anything else you want to know, Ray? Just ask me a question. It's like I said, I don't have a picture. I do have a picture of me in a uniform, but it's just the one that they took when I was in basic training, but my wife can't find it. It's about the only ones I have. I had lots and lots of pictures, but I don't ever know they probably got them in the slides. I probably have 35 millimeter slides.
Were there some people there that really that come to mind? That did some interesting stuff?
I can remember that I was stationed with in Berlin, because everybody did their own thing because it was such a classified deal. You never talked on the telephone. I never talked on the telephone for over 2 years. Never used a telephone. Because we were told not to use the telephone. When I got in the company, the guy said, do not get on a telephone and do not talk on the telephone. And so it was one of the things you just didn't do. And other than that, I did what I was supposed to do. The government, minimum requirements on the government's part. But I sometimes I'm sorry I didn't re-enlist again for 6 years. At the time when I was in, I could have re-enlisted and probably stayed in Berlin. And I was there when the Berlin Wall went up. I left a month before the Berlin Wall went up. And if I would have been there another month, the government would have kept me for another 6 months. And then they would have probably got me there. I probably would have re-enlisted if I would have put in another 6 months. They would have probably got me for another year. They would have probably kept me there. They would have just extended my, my stay over there. And so I would have had to stay, and I thought about extending and coming home for Christmas, but Montana, come home at Christmas time in Montana at 40 below zero. No, and it took me over a month to get to Montana when I did get out of the service. It took me a month to get from New York to Montana. I took the side streets and that, going home and that, and visited some friends of mine. But I knew some friends that stationed at the underground Pentagon. I knew some of them. They ended up with government jobs and stuff like this. And they were, friends. But the guys that I went to Germany with, more or less, everybody was afraid to be involved with each other because everything was so sensitive in that. And everybody was afraid, not afraid of anybody turning each other in. No, that didn't happen. But we did have a security breach. A guy fell asleep on the S-Bahn and ended up in Potsdam, which is, the Russians had him for 3 days, and they said he sang like a canary. So it's, that happens, that's not good. That's not good. And so that's why when you're messing with top secret stuff, mum's the word in that. And even my wife doesn't know what I did when I was in the service. And I did it over 50 years ago. So.
Were you married at the time?
No. I met my wife 4 years after I got out of the service. I met her 2 years after I got out of the service, and we got married in '63. And I got out in '61, came out to Washington in '63, and I was headed for California. And I'm trying to get bus fare to go, but nobody will give me bus fare. No, I'll never leave Washington. It's the place. It's the best in that. So, but that's all I know. We had my family support. Every one of my brothers were in the service. My older brother just died. He was in the 11th Airborne Division, and
how long was he in the?
He was 81. He was a year and a half older than I am, and then I have a younger brother that was in the Marine Corps, and then I have another younger brother that was in the Army, and then I actually have 2 brothers that were in the Army. Everyone in my family had joined the service. It's been in the service and that, so. Good, bad, or indifferent, it didn't hurt you. It didn't hurt you. And actually, I recommend it to a lot of kids, and I have a nephew, a grandson that's in the Marine Corps right now, and he calls us every once in a while and sends us pictures of him and that. So, pretty proud of the kid. I'm pretty proud of the kid. So, anyway, that's all I have to say.
Well, thank
No
you.
more.
I appreciate it.
And I'm a member of the American Legion, and I will stay a member of the American Legion. I don't know if Jan Webford now, like I say, he was in the submarines, and he was doing all classified stuff on sonar. He told me he was working on sonar classified stuff also. But he was one of the first ones that joined when they asked if we'd joined the the American Legion. We agreed to, and I see they went around see if they could get 5 or 6 guys to join, that they could maybe start this outfit. And I'm amazed. I'm amazed how far it's went, and it's a good bunch of guys, and I'm proud of the joint and that. And thank you, Ray, for interviewing me. Okay.
Okay.
Turn that machine off.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ray.